Why do you want to be executed?
I have to be. Because I will kill again. No, I would do it again. I've been molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old, over half my life. Anything happened, I can guarantee I'd do it again, and sooner or later I would kill another child.
Most men on death row spend years fighting to stay alive, filing appeals, hiring lawyers, begging governors, courts, and anyone who will listen. Not this man. Westley Allan Dodd walked into that courtroom, looked the judge dead in the eye, and said, "I must be executed before I have an opportunity to escape or kill someone else." He didn't want mercy. He didn't want a second chance. He wanted to die, and he told the state of Washington exactly how to do it. He chose hanging because that was the same way he killed his last victim. This is the story of a man who looked at everything he had done, looked at everything he knew he was capable of doing, and decided the world was safer without him in it. Westley Allan Dodd was born on July 3rd, 1961 in Toppenish, Washington. By every account, his childhood was cold and empty. His parents fought constantly. There was no warmth and love, and the darkness inside Dodd did not wait for any of that to get worse. He was 13 years old when he committed his first offense. Before his parents even divorced, he began exposing himself to young children in his neighborhood. He was barely a teenager, and already the pattern had begun. As he got older, he progressed to molesting his own younger cousins, neighborhood children he offered to babysit, and the children of a woman his father was dating. Here is what should stop you cold about this. Adults knew. His own father told an Oregon newspaper that he was aware of his son's behavior, but largely looked the other way because he was otherwise a well-behaved child who never had problems with drugs or alcohol. A father who knew and did nothing. The neighbors knew. He was reported, caught, and was processed through the system multiple times. At 15, he was arrested for indecent exposure. Police released him with the recommendation for juvenile counseling. That was it. He joined the United States Navy and was stationed in Bangor, Washington. He used a naval base to find victims. He made trips to Seattle and targeted children in movie theater restrooms. He used money to lure children to secluded locations. He was caught again, discharged from the Navy, served 19 days in jail, and put on probation. In 1984, he was convicted of sexually abusing a 9-year-old boy. The judge gave him a 10-year sentence, then immediately suspended it, letting Dodd walk free on the condition he attend counseling. He kept going. Years later, when asked why he kept offending despite the risk of getting caught, Dodd said something that tells you everything you need to know about the man. He said he did it because he liked it, and because every time the system caught him, it released him. So he kept going. By 1989, Westley Allan Dodd was 28 years old and living in Vancouver, Washington. He had a job and an apartment. He looked, to anyone passing him on the street, like an ordinary man. But inside that apartment was a diary, and in that diary Dodd had been writing down his plans. Detailed, methodical, calculated plans for what he intended to do next. He had also built something in that apartment, a homemade torture rack. On September 4th, 1989, Dodd went to a park in Vancouver with shoelaces in his pocket and a knife on his person. He spotted 2 brothers in the park, Cole Neer and his brother William. He convinced them to follow him off the path and into the woods. Both brothers were killed. Less than 15 minutes after Dodd fled the scene, a teenage hiker found their bodies. Dodd went home, and over the next 2 months, he filled a scrapbook with newspaper clippings about the murders. He wasn't hiding from what he had done. He was collecting it. On October 29th, 1989, he struck again. He drove to Portland, Oregon, and took a boy named Lee Iselli from a playground. Lee never went home. After Lee, Dodd kept going. He was hunting again. On November 13th, 1989, he attempted to abduct another boy from a theater in Camas, Washington. The boy screamed. People saw. Westley Allan Dodd was arrested in the parking lot. When police searched his apartment, the evidence was overwhelming. A diary, a scrapbook of news clippings, a homemade torture rack, items belonging to Lee Iselli hidden in a briefcase under his bed. There was no ambiguity, no question, no doubt. Dodd initially claimed innocence, Then he changed his mind. He pleaded guilty to everything. The sentencing hearing for Westley Allan Dodd was unlike almost any other in American legal history, because the defendant did not show up to fight for his life. He showed up to end it. Dodd took the stand and addressed the judge directly. He told the court that if he was ever released from prison, he would do everything possible to kill again. He said he would attempt to escape. He said he would kill prison guards if necessary to get out. He said the only way to guarantee that did not happen was to execute him. He asked for the death penalty. The jury gave it to him. And then Dodd did something even more extraordinary. He refused his automatic appeal. In capital cases in the United States, appeals are built into the process specifically to catch mistakes. They are mandatory. They are there to protect defendants. Dodd filed a legal brief to waive his right to appeal. Inside that brief was one sentence that became one of the most chilling statements in American legal history. He wrote, "I must be executed before I have an opportunity to escape or kill someone else." His own lawyers fought him on this. They took the matter to the Washington Supreme Court. They argued that their client was not mentally competent to waive his appeals. The court ruled 7-2. Dodd had the right to choose. After just 3 years on death row, the state of Washington prepared to execute Westley Allan Dodd. He made one final request. He did not want a lethal injection. He wanted to be hanged, because that was the way Leocelli died. January 5th, 1993. Just after midnight, Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Outside in the snow, demonstrators had gathered. Some held candles against the execution. Some were cheering for it. State troopers arrested several people who tried to move onto the prison grounds. It was the first legal hanging in the United States since 1965. The method had fallen so completely out of use that the executioners had to consult an army manual from the 1880s to remember the correct procedure. They had to find a manual from the 1800s because no one alive had done this before. 16 witnesses were present inside. 2 of them were family members of Dodd's victims. Just before midnight, Dodd was brought into the upper half of the execution chamber. He was given the opportunity to make a final statement. And here is where Dodd surprised everyone. The man who had shown no remorse. The man who had spoken about his crimes with the detachment of someone reading a shopping list. The man who had written in his diary with clinical precision about what he had done and what he planned to do next. That man stood in front of 16 witnesses and said this. "I was once asked by somebody, I don't remember who, if there was any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong. I was wrong when I said there was no hope, no peace. There is hope. There is peace. I found both in the Lord Jesus Christ. Look to the Lord, and you will find peace." The trap door opened. Witnesses reported there was no struggle, no suffering. At 12:09 in the morning, Westley Allan Dodd was pronounced dead. He was 31 years old. Outside, the pro-execution demonstrators set off firecrackers. There are questions that this case forces into the open, and none of them have comfortable answers. The first question is about the system that created him. Westley Allan Dodd offended for 15 years before he killed anyone. 15 years. He was caught repeatedly, reported repeatedly, processed repeatedly, and released repeatedly. 3 boys are dead because the system that was supposed to stop him kept handing him back to the world. His own father knew and said nothing. The police knew and did nothing. Judges reduced sentences and let him walk. The question of how many warning signs a system needs before it takes something seriously is not a question anyone in authority ever fully answered. The second question is about his final words. He spent his entire criminal life showing no remorse, no guilt, no recognition of his victims as human beings. And then in his final 60 seconds, he spoke about hope and peace and finding God. Was it real? Was it performance? Was it a man genuinely transformed on the last night of his life? Or was it one final act of manipulation from someone who had spent decades being exactly what he wanted to be? Nobody knows. Westley Allan Dodd told the state of Washington the truth about himself from the moment he was arrested to the moment he died. He said he would kill again if given the chance. He said executing him was the right decision. He said there was no other way. In a system full of people who lie, manipulate, and perform innocence they do not feel, Westley Allan Dodd was completely honest. Whether that makes him more terrifying or less is something only you can decide.